first question that I have is just kind of to tell me a little bit about yourself and your role and the students you primarily work with, or
Sure. So I'm Jenny Bloom, and I'm a faculty member and a full professor at Florida Atlantic University in the Higher Education Leadership Program. We are part of the Department of Educational Research, Leadership and Research Methodology. So I run the master's degree program. We have about 60 master's degree students, and then I have about 18 PhD advisees on top of that. But then on top of all that, as is evidenced by our earlier little visit, my husband Steve works in new student orientation. So one of my favorite things to do is interact with undergraduates. And so I've been able to do that a lot more here at FAU through Steve, because he really gets to know the orientation leaders well throughout the summer, and we have them over at the beginning of the semester of the summer and then at the end of the season, and I love that. That's a little bit about me. Oh, and then I'm the founder of the Office of Appreciative Education at FAU.
Awesome. And then going off of that, in your role, how have you seen students, or I guess as an appreciative educator in general, how have you seen that students are kind of struggling throughout this time, and not in academics, so outside of academics?
I've seen both, right? Struggling personally and academically, but I've also seen people thriving, people doing really well. So got a student who's an introvert and loves to be with her family, and in particular with her younger sister, and she's loving it. She's like, she's using phrases like, I'm living my best life. And so not everybody is struggling, and I think that that's an important thing to remember. But then I do have people who are struggling academically. Just the move to online education is a struggle for some. For some, they just don't have the bandwidth to be able to devote time to their academics, and some of them have, ghosted a little bit, and I've been really trying to follow up with people, and I've been very persistent in reaching out to folks, and that's been an interesting thing. But then otherwise, we've been having weekly Zoom calls with the master's degree students. It's not required, it's optional. And that has been, I think, really good. I know it's been good for me and my own mental health to see everybody, to see their smiles. But we've, had probably 20 to 25 people. I've got about 60 students total. Plus, we've had some faculty members as well as some of our adjuncts that have been coming on. And I think it means a lot to the students that we're, a presence and that we're there for them. And we've been trying to ask some good, appreciative kind of discover questions to get things started. So I think that has, but in terms of people who have large weights to them, I would say people who are graduating from our master's degree program, normally it's not an issue really to get a job within higher education. That's not true right now. And I think it's tough. So there's lots of unknowns and uncertainties for those students. And so I've been trying to do that a little bit through the weekly meetings, but then through individual conversations with people who are graduating.
And how have you kind of seen your master's students navigating throughout this time? Especially like you said, because jobs are very slim right now and everyone's under hiring freezes. How do you see master's students not only navigating their roles as master's students, but also like transitioning?
Yeah, I mean, everybody's different, right? And I think, I don't know about you, but I have good days and I have bad days. Like there's times when I feel like, yeah, I've got this figured out. This is all good. And then there's days where I just am making silly mistakes and I'm not at my best. And I think that's an important thing to remember. Like each one of us as an N of one is not consistent. And then when you look at a group of people, it's the same kind of thing, you know, and even though somebody's presenting one day as feeling very overwhelmed, but then it could be 2 days later that they're feeling calm and reassured. And so how do you kind of meet people where they're at, and how do you normalize this roller coaster of emotions that we're all feeling? And one way that I've been trying to do that is to talk about my own, and to be transparent and vulnerable with how I'm feeling, and that I'm just amazed at the mistakes that I have made. In particular, it was like a couple of weeks ago, I was just like on a roll in terms of making just silly mistakes, saying it's Wednesday, April, 23rd, when it's Wednesday, April 22nd, like those kinds of things that I normally would catch, just and wasn't in particular at that time. And having grace with ourselves, I think, is super important. I think people are using a wide range of strategies. I think that's the key here. Some days that word grace works for me. Some days it's like you're in the middle of a freaking pandemic, Jenny.
Yeah.
Like, give yourself a break. Some days that works, and some days I just need to go for a walk and regroup. And that's what I'm hoping to role model for my students. But I'm also learning from them in terms of how they are, kind of, for lack of a better term, kind of self-soothing themselves and not getting caught up in being overwhelmed. But then again, it's okay to be overwhelmed. I think if you can just say, I'm feeling overwhelmed right now, what's the strategy that I can use? Try walking around the block. I'm trying to be clear to my students that I'm a strategy, I'm a resource, that, call me. Let's talk this through. Let's refocus on what you have control over versus what you don't have control over. And I think that always that can help. But it's got to be a whole toolbox of strategies that we're all using.
Mm-hmm. And going off of that, how do you find that appreciative education could kind of help student affairs professionals? How do you use that to kind of help student affairs professionals help their students? What advice would you give in that area?
I think thinking about the kinds of questions that we're asking to check in, because my friend Michael Bjorkia at Utah State, she just did that webinar for us. And, the name of it and this phrase that she said really has stuck with me: people before process.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can't just go into, exactly, you need to take this course and this course this fall. I'm done. That we really need to take the time to check in with people. And I think we need to move beyond just, how are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because I think it's how you ask that question is important. It's like, how are you doing? You're going to get a different response than if you say, like, what are you doing? Like, I know I've been having a rough day today, but I wanted to check in and see how you're doing. That is a very different question and context. But then moving beyond that, what's the most important thing you've learned about yourself through the pandemic? What's bringing you hope for humanity during this pandemic? I've been kind of compiling some questions, and actually what I did last Friday at our check-in was I come up with 9 questions that were kind of discover kinds of questions. And when we did the check-in, I had everybody go around and introduce themselves, and because we had incoming students as well as current students, and I had 9 questions, and I let them choose which question that they asked. I've never done that before, and that worked really, really well to give people a choice in terms of which question they answered, and it worked super well.
Yeah, that's